Okay, so we're going to move on to a really nerdy one here.
Hell yeah, that's what we're about. That's why you come to this show.
Yes,
You can get my liberal talking points on any other show, but this, no one else is talking about this.
Yeah, the bureaucracy that we just love to get into. So the Biden administration produced rules for its hydrogen tax credit that's going to come out of the Inflation Reduction Act. So hydrogen is seen as a promising tool to tackle climate change. It's a new form of fuel. When burned, it mainly emits water vapor, which it actually is also a greenhouse gas, but it's very short-lived in the atmosphere because it's kept in balance by the hydrologic cycle, right? So if there's too much water vapor emitted into the atmosphere, it just comes down as rain, and we don't have to worry about it warming the earth too much. So the IRA included $13.1 billion in subsidies for hydrogen fuel. But the thing is, immediately some experts came out and they were worried about the hydrogen subsidies causing a spike in fossil fuel emissions. And so you might think, why is that? Well, because making hydrogen requires energy, and very little of the hydrogen made today is made with clean energy.
That's really interesting.
Right? So these rules came out, and you had the experts that were saying, make sure to place restrictions on the fuel with which the hydrogen is made. And you have the businesses, the hydrogen developers, that's like, no, if you put these kinds of rules on it, it's going to cost way more. And then we're not going to be able to innovate as much or to develop as much. Biden fell on the side of the experts who warned against the emissions, right? So he made rules that the hydrogen producers have to draw energy from new, clean sources. And it requires new energy sources so that the production is less likely to require a spike in fossil fuels elsewhere to compensate, right? So it's like you don't want a solar source that's been in use for 15 years, because if that solar source has already been providing energy to part of the grid and now it's half of that energy is being used by the hydrogen producer, well, the fossil fuels are still going to have to compensate for it, right? Mm-hmm. So the rule is it has to be from energy sources that were made in the past 3 years. This will create barriers, okay? Making hydrogen cleanly costs about 3 times as much as making it from natural gas, which is pretty much entirely how it's made today. So this is going to make it a lot harder for the hydrogen producers. The one other thing I'll say is the nuclear industry asked for the hydrogen tax credits to be made available for them, but this is a more controversial part of the rules, and the administration has pushed that decision off until they receive public comment. So it might still come through, but they wanted to procrastinate on it.
This seems as like they kind of shot for the moon here, and they didn't really think past step. They didn't think about step one. Right. Bit. They didn't think about it. They didn't think, they were like, oh no, hydrogen's a clean energy source.
Yeah.
Let's definitely give subsidies for hydrogen. But then you realize if we're making it with fossil fuels and it's emitting that much more carbon into the atmosphere, it's really not helping anybody.
Yeah.
Nuclear would. And
yes.
I am a big proponent of nuclear.
Yeah, we're both big proponents of nuclear. They still seem to be scared about the political implications of going all in on nuclear, right? Yeah. Like the people, I feel like almost everyone who has looked into nuclear is a huge fan of it.
Yes.
But everyone else who hears nuclear
and they just think Chernobyl.
Yeah, and then they're scared and they're against it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like we should, I don't know. I mean, I feel like we should think about Chernobyl the same way you think about a really bad oil spill, right? A really bad oil spill happens and it kills a bunch of people and destroys a whole environment, and we didn't stop using oil because of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I guess
it obviously has way worse consequences than an oil spill.
I think we're just more scared of what radiation burns and radiation poisoning. It does feel scarier.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the only question I think I'm on board, right? Again, this cost benefit, I think the costs of the spike in emissions, when that's the one thing that we're trying to combat with these rules, it's not worth risking.
No.
So I'm on board with this. I don't know if there's really any cost, like a 3x on how much it costs to make the hydrogen definitely is not enough for me to think that the rules should be more lax. It would, I feel like it would have to be like 50x or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree.
So generally happy with this. Biden wants to try to make 50 times the amount of hydrogen that we make right now for fuel by 2050. This will be a part of it, even though it's going to cost more. There was one company in Texas, I forgot what it was, that already pledged $4 billion in investment to making hydrogen, and they're going to use some of these subsidies. So it definitely will help. We'll just have to see how much it does.
That's beautiful. I mean, like it's so cool and futuristic to think about, like, oh man, our cars are going to be emitting water. Yeah. Like that's kind of sick to think about.
It is awesome.
It's just, I'm not a science guy. I'm like a math person. I never, I'm like a data scientist. That's what I do. I don't know a lot about science. So when I start reading about it for this podcast, whether it's carbon capture, whether it be green energy generally, whether it be hydrogen, I just always get so shocked about how far we actually are,
Yeah. Yeah. It is cool.
Yeah.